12 children, one driver, one school bus. In 1986, they were completely erased from Oregon's records. No crash evidence, no kidnapping signs, no ransom demands, as if they never existed. But in 2024, an old warehouse found outside town proved this mysterious disappearance was just the beginning. Before we begin, subscribe to uncover the stories they tried to bury and ensure no name is ever forgotten. The third Thursday of October, 1986. In the small town of Millfield, Oregon, autumn leaves had turned golden, and children were boarding buses to head home from school. The usual bustle filled the courtyard of Riverside Elementary. Teachers directed children toward their buses, while drivers started engines and performed final checks. At exactly 3:15 p.m., the yellow school bus number 47 pulled away from the school gates. Behind the wheel sat experienced driver Frank Morrison, who had been using the same route for 23 years and knew every street in Millfield by heart. That day, 12 children were aboard. Sarah Chen, age 8, twins Marcus and Michael Torres, age 9, Emily Watson, age 7, David Park, age 10, Lisa Anderson, age 8, Tommy Rodriguez, age 9, Jessica Mitchell, age 7, Brandon Clark, age 8, Ashley Morgan, age 9, Kevin Walsh, age 10, and Samantha Brooks, age 7. Morrison's route was simple. Exit the school, follow Main Street, turn onto Pine Avenue, then switch to Maple Drive to drop the children at their homes. Total distance, 8 miles, normally taking 20 minutes. Everything seemed routine. At 3:35 p.m., Morrison's first stop was the Watson family home on Pine Avenue. Emily Watson's mother, Carol, was watching from the kitchen window for the bus. 3:40 came and went. No bus appeared. 3:45, 3:50, 4:00, still nowhere to be seen. Carol Watson wasn't quite ready to worry yet, but a strange uneasiness settled in her stomach. At 4:30 p.m., the second stop family, the Torres on Maple Drive, called the school. The twins Marcus and Michael still weren't home. The third stop, the Anderson family, reported the same situation. One by one, other families began calling, saying their children hadn't arrived home. Riverside Elementary Principal Janet Reynolds frantically tried to understand what was happening. At 5 p.m., an official search was launched. The Millfield Police Department, Fire Department, and volunteer search and rescue teams sprang into action. Morrison's routine route was searched mile by mile. Main Street, Pine Avenue, Maple Drive, every side street, every park area, every vacant lot was investigated. No trace was found. Police Chief Robert Hayes struggled to understand the situation. Bus number 47 had seemingly vanished into thin air. No crash evidence, no skid marks, no glass fragments. Morrison had a spotless 23-year record. No alcohol, drugs, or criminal history. His family described him as reliable and responsible. The first 48 hours were critical. FBI agents arrived in town. Helicopters scanned the area, and dog teams tracked scents. The forested areas around Millfield, the riverbed, and abandoned buildings were searched one by one. None yielded results. The bus and its occupants had disappeared as if they had passed through the earth itself. On the third day, FBI Special Agent Rebecca Martinez began investigating the case in depth. She researched Morrison's personal life. Banking records were normal, phone records routine, and his social circle contained no suspicious individuals. Family friends described Morrison as someone who loved children and took his job seriously. Martinez also examined the families of the missing children. There was no common connection among them. They came from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different neighborhoods, and different friend groups. They didn't possess any special characteristics that might have made them targets for kidnapping. Throughout the first week, various theories emerged. It was thought that Morrison might have fled with the children, but there was no logical reason for this. The possibility that the bus had rolled into the river was investigated, but the water level was low, and such a large vehicle would have been easily visible. The possibility of a terrorist attack was also considered, but in 1986, this seemed unlikely for a small town like Millfield. The second week, the media began showing intense interest in the case. The Millfield mystery became a headline in national news. Photos of the children were published in newspapers, and families tearfully pleaded for their children's return on television programs. Morrison's wife Eleanor insisted her husband would never do such a thing, and that something must have gone terribly wrong. The third week brought the first false report. A citizen from Idaho claimed to have seen a yellow bus. Teams went there only to find it was a false alarm. Similar reports then came from Washington, California, and Nevada. All proved to be empty leads. No real clue ever materialized. A month later, the FBI moved the case file to the cold cases category. Active search operations were halted, but the case wasn't closed. Martinez returned to her other duties, but the Millfield case continued to trouble her. The complete disappearance of 13 people was simply impossible. The families never gave up hope. Sarah Chen's father, William, hired private detectives. The Torres family sought help from psychics. The Anderson family's mother, Martha, spent every weekend driving to neighboring towns distributing photos of the children. None of it yielded results. In 1987, a memorial ceremony was held on the anniversary of the case. 13 empty chairs were arranged at Riverside Elementary. Millfield residents gathered silently by candlelight. Everyone hoped they would return someday. But as days passed, hope diminished. 1988, 1989, 1990. Years went by. The siblings of the missing children grew up, married, and had children of their own. Parents aged. Some lost hope while others continued to wait. Bus number 47 became legend in Millfield. Children began telling this story to each other as a ghost story. In 1995, Morrison's wife Eleanor died. Until her last breath, she defended her husband's innocence. In 2001, Police Chief Hayes retired, passing the case to the next generation. In 2010, FBI Agent Martinez also retired. The case remained open, but no one actively worked on it anymore, until 2024. In March 2024, real estate developer Jonathan Pierce began a project in the old industrial area outside Millfield. The area contained abandoned factory buildings and warehouses from the 1970s. Pierce's plan was to convert this area into a modern residential complex. When the construction crew began work, they noticed an old warehouse in the most remote corner of the area. The structure had been built in the 1960s and hadn't been used for decades. The exterior walls were rusted, the roof had collapsed, and windows were broken. No one knew what was inside. Construction worker Mike Torres, the older brother of missing twins, Marcus and Michael, froze when he entered the warehouse to clean it. In the center, covered in rust and dust, sat a yellow old school bus. The number 47 was still readable on its license plate. When Torres called the police, they notified the FBI. Old case files were pulled from archives. After 38 years, the missing bus had been found. But the truly shocking discovery wasn't the bus's condition, but what would be discovered in the rest of the warehouse. FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen from Portland office, cousin of missing Sarah Chen, took over the case. Initial examination was shocking. The bus interior was strangely clean. It looked like it had been parked yesterday. But closer inspection revealed disturbing details. Blood stains on the driver's seat, fabric fragments on back seats. Most importantly, metal rings had been mounted to the bus floor. Chen's team examined the rest of the warehouse. In one corner, they found metal tables, old medical instruments, syringes, medicine bottles. Some labels read sedative, drugs to control victims. A hidden section was discovered in the warehouse's rear wall. Inside were 13 filing cabinets. Each cabinet had a child's photo on top. 12 were the missing children. The 13th was Morrison. The files contained horrifying details, personal information about each child, family situations, daily routines, fears had been recorded. Collecting this information must have taken months. Morrison hadn't chosen these children randomly. The most shocking discovery was the hidden room beneath the warehouse. Ground-penetrating radar detected empty space under the floor. When FBI excavated, they found a second level 3 meters deep. On both sides of the corridor were 13 small cells. Each cell was 2 square meters. Inside were beds, sinks, toilets. Walls were sound insulated, doors locked from outside. This was a long-term captivity system. In one cell, numbers scratched into the wall were found. Someone had been counting days, up to 847, approximately 2 years and 4 months. Someone had been held here that long. In other cells were children's drawings, shapes drawn with broken pencils, writings saying, "I miss home." These were silent witnesses to the children's despair here. FBI experts took DNA samples from cell walls. 12 different DNA profiles matched the missing children. The 13th belonged to Morrison. So he had been held here too. The horrifying truth emerged. Morrison wasn't innocent, but wasn't acting alone. Someone must have kidnapped him too and set up this system. T acting alone either. Someone must have kidnapped him too and set up this system. But who was this person? When the warehouse's old records were examined, it was learned that it had been rented by a company from 1983 to 1995. This company, called Educational Research Solutions, claimed to conduct child psychology research. The company's owner was Dr. Vernon Hayes, brother of former police chief Robert Hayes. Vernon Hayes claimed to be a psychology doctor, but his diploma proved to be fake. In reality, he was a depraved criminal who conducted experiments on children. He had come to Oregon in 1986, targeting the town where his brother was police chief. He had first deceived Morrison, then forced him into cooperation through threats. Vernon's plan was this. While Morrison collected children on the normal school route, Vernon would be waiting at a predetermined point. After the children were drugged, they would be taken to the warehouse where Vernon would conduct psychological experiments on them. Morrison would also be eliminated as a witness. So what had happened to these children? The answer to this question was found in the warehouse's deepest corner. There, buried underground, was a chest. Inside were 13 small urns, each with a name tag attached. The names of the missing children and Morrison were there. DNA tests confirmed that the contents of the urns indeed belonged to the missing children and Morrison. Vernon Hayes had killed them all after finishing his experiments and tried to cover his tracks by cremating them. Vernon Hayes' own fate remained unknown for a long time. He had disappeared after 1995. When the FBI launched extensive investigation, they learned Hayes had died in a car accident in Mexico in 1997. He had lost his life while trying to escape justice. But the story didn't end there. Notes found in Vernon's documents indicated he had conducted similar operations in other towns. A family that disappeared in Idaho in 1989. A summer camp group that vanished in Washington in 1991. School trip students who disappeared in California in 1993. The FBI began reopening these cases as well. It was understood that Vernon Hayes had committed similar crimes not only in Millfield, but in many places throughout Western America. He systematically targeted children, kidnapping them for use in experiments. By the end of 2024, the families of the missing children finally learned the truth. The children they had waited for 38 years would never return. But at least they had learned what happened to them and knew who the perpetrators were. A large memorial ceremony was held in Millfield. The names of the missing children and Morrison were carved into a marble monument. Families tearfully left white roses in memory of their children who had been cremated rather than buried. Sarah Chen's father, William, was now 76 years old. In his speech at the ceremony, he said, "For 38 years, I hoped my daughter would knock on our door one day. Knowing this will never happen is painful, but at least I know she is at peace." FBI. Agent Sarah Chen stated that carrying her missing cousin's name held special meaning for her. "This case taught me that we must never give up. Every missing person leaves behind a loving family. We will continue fighting for their justice." Millfield began rebuilding itself after this horrific story. The old warehouse was demolished, replaced with a safe playground for children. Every October 14th, the day the children disappeared, the park is remembered with a quiet memorial ceremony. This story shows how even the most innocent-seeming situations can hide dark truths. What happened in Millfield in 1986 wasn't just the death of 13 people, but also the loss of a community's innocence. People like Vernon Hayes could live secretly in society, hiding behind trustworthy individuals. Morrison's story was proof of this. Perhaps he was initially deceived with innocent intentions, later silenced through fear. Today, the FBI has developed new systems to prevent similar cases. Situations where children go missing are detected much faster. Coordinated search operations are launched. Thanks to technology, GPS tracking, security cameras, and rapid communication networks make it harder for such criminals to operate. But the most important lesson is that society must remain vigilant. Children's safety is everyone's responsibility. Reporting suspicious situations, maintaining regular communication with children, and ensuring they are safe are the first steps in preventing such tragedies. The Millfield case also showed that missing person investigations should never be abandoned. Evidence found after 38 years provided closure to families and contributed to preventing similar crimes. Although justice came late, it ultimately prevailed. Vernon Hayes' documents revealed other cases where he had conducted similar operations in other towns. The family that disappeared in Idaho in 1989, the summer camp group that vanished in Washington in 1991, the school trip students who disappeared in California in 1993. The FBI began reopening these cases as well. It was understood that Vernon Hayes had committed similar crimes not only in Millfield, but throughout Western America. He systematically targeted children, kidnapping them for experimental use. The Thompson family case in Idaho was particularly noteworthy. Father John Thompson, Mother Patricia Thompson, and their 8-year-old son Michael had vanished while camping near Boise. Their vehicle was found by the lake, but there was no trace of the family. 35 years later, after the Millfield case emerged, the FBI sent a team to Idaho. The Idaho search resulted in horrific evidence found at an abandoned farmhouse 50 miles south of Boise. Vernon Hayes had established a similar system here as well. Hidden rooms in the farmhouse basement, personal belongings of the Thompson family, and Hayes' written notes were discovered. The notes revealed Hayes' psychological profile. He could be described as someone who had experienced childhood trauma and displayed sociopathic traits. His notes contained phrases like testing the limits of human behavior and observing the effects of fear and helplessness. He was an experimenter, but one whose experiments belonged to a monster who had long crossed medical ethical boundaries. The Washington Summer Camp Group case left traces in the Cascade Mountains. In the summer of 1991, 8 children disappeared from Camp Riverside. Jennifer Walsh, age 9, Robert Kim, age 10, Amanda Foster, age 8, Daniel Cruz, age 11, Melissa Johnson, age 9, Tyler Brooks, age 10, Rachel Park, age 8, and Christopher Lee, age 9. Hayes, who had forged identification documents as a camp employee, had removed the children from camp under the pretense of a special nature walk. During the FBI's 2024 investigation, remains of Hayes's temporary laboratory were found in an old mine in the mountains. This laboratory contained documents showing the experiments Hayes conducted on children, measuring fear responses, testing decision-making mechanisms under stress, examining the psychological effects of loneliness and darkness were among the horrific research he had conducted. He viewed each child as a test subject, recording their suffering as scientific data. The 1993 California case was even more complex. 15 children and 2 teachers were on a school trip bus from Jefferson Elementary near San Francisco. They had disappeared during their trip to Muir Woods. The bus never reached its destination. When the FBI's California office reopened this file after the Millfield case, they discovered a warehouse Hayes had rented during that period along the bus route. This warehouse in Marin County was arranged similarly to the others. The bus had been hidden here, and the children and teachers had become victims of Hayes's horrific experiments. In this case, Hayes's methods had become more sophisticated. He had used teachers Caroline Spencer and Mark Davidson to control the children. He had also taken them prisoner, but forced them to play a protective role toward the children. This was calculated psychological manipulation to create feelings of trust and dependency in the children. Hayes had detailed these tactics in his personal notes. When children feel threatened, they become more attached to authority figures. When they see their teachers as saviors, their tendency to obey increases. This situation is ideal for obtaining the behavioral responses I desire. The most tragic aspect of the Jefferson Elementary case was the young age of the children. The youngest was 6-year-old Emma Rodriguez. The oldest was 8-year-old Alex Chen. For children of this age, the psychological torture Hayes applied was particularly devastating. Since their mental development wasn't yet complete, the effects of the trauma they experienced were much deeper. Emma Rodriguez's parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, had believed for 31 years that their daughter would return. Every birthday, they made a cake for Emma. Every Christmas, they bought her presents and placed them under the tree. When they learned the truth in 2024, Maria Rodriguez was hospitalized. Her heart couldn't handle the situation. Alex Chen's family chose a different path. After losing their child, they established a foundation for missing children. The Alex Chen Foundation had supported thousands of families over the years and financed search operations. Foundation President Robert Chen, Alex's father, said after learning the truth, "My son died, but his name will continue to live. Thanks to this foundation, other families won't experience the pain we lived through." As the scope of Hayes's crimes became clear, FBI efforts spread nationwide. Every state where Hayes had left traces from the 1970s to the 1990s was examined one by one: Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico. Similar cases were found in each. Hayes didn't only target children. Sometimes he kidnapped young couples, sometimes solitary elderly people. The Davis couple who disappeared in Utah in 1988. The Johnson family who vanished in Colorado in 1990. The Williams brothers who disappeared in Arizona in 1992. All were part of Hayes's systematic crime network. Each case had the same modus operandi: kidnapping victims from safe environments, holding them captive in remote locations, conducting psychological experiments, and then killing them. The most shocking discovery was found in Hayes's diaries. These diaries, kept from 1975 to 1995, showed his crime process step by step. His first victim was 12-year-old Timothy Walsh, kidnapped in Houston in 1975. At that time, he was still amateur, his plan simple. But as years passed, his methods developed and he perfected his system. The Timothy Walsh case became a separate investigation topic for the FBI. Files retrieved from Houston Police Department archives showed how inadequate the investigation was at that time. Technology was limited, communication networks weak. It was easy for a mobile criminal like Hayes to escape. Timothy's mother, Dorothy Walsh, was 89 years old in 2024 and still alive. When FBI agents told her the truth, she learned what happened to her son after 49 years. "I thought I would die without learning what happened to Timothy. Now I know he is at peace," she said through tears. What Hayes wrote about Timothy in his diaries was particularly disturbing. The first subject was quite successful. "I was able to fully measure a 12-year-old boy's stress responses. Fear level higher than expected, adaptation capacity low. This data will serve as reference for future subjects." These lines completely revealed Hayes's mentality. He didn't see children as human beings. They were just objects he used for his experiments. Each victim provided him new data, helping him improve his methods. When FBI profiling experts created Hayes's psychological profile, they determined he ranked at the highest level of the psychopath spectrum. A profile with completely absent empathy, very high manipulation skills, developed planning capacity, and no remorse after crimes. Hayes's ability to use false identities was particularly notable. He had created different names, different professions, different backgrounds in each state. In Oregon, he was Dr. Vernon Hayes. In California, education specialist Walter Harrison. In Utah, therapy specialist Victor Henderson. In Colorado, researcher Vincent Harper. Each identity was perfect camouflage for crimes in that region. To create these false identities, he needed extensive support networks. During FBI investigation, it was discovered that Hayes regularly cooperated with at least 3 people. These were fake document expert Gerald Morrison, not related to Frank Morrison, chemist Patricia Velasco, and former military personnel David Quinn. Gerald Morrison provided fake diplomas, identification documents, and driver's licenses. Patricia Velasco supplied drugs and prepared medications needed to control children. David Quinn handled security matters, finding suitable locations, disabling security cameras, and conducting police reconnaissance. When the FBI investigated the fate of all 3, surprising results emerged. Gerald Morrison had died in a car accident in Nevada in 1993. Patricia Velasco had died from a drug overdose in New Mexico in 1996. David Quinn had died of a heart attack in Arizona in 1999. Although all these deaths appeared natural or accidental, FBI experts believed Hayes had systematically eliminated his crime partners. Hayes was a paranoid personality who preferred to eliminate any witness who could expose him. Hayes's 1997 death also occurred under suspicious circumstances. He was claimed to have had a traffic accident near Tijuana, Mexico, but Mexican police reports were contradictory. FBI agents traveled to Mexico in 2024 to reinvestigate the case. In Tijuana, police department's old records, it was discovered that Hayes's real name was Victor Haywood. Under this name, he had lived in Mexico from 1995 to 1997, working as a volunteer with local children's care homes. Details of his activities in Mexico are still being investigated, but initial findings suggest Hayes committed similar crimes here too. The number of Hayes's victims during his Mexico period is unknown, but local records documented 8 children who mysteriously disappeared between 1995 to 1997. None of these children were ever found, and the cases remained unsolved. After the FBI solved the Millfield case, Mexican authorities also reopened these old cases. International cooperation was initiated. Areas where Hayes lived in Mexico were searched one by one. Old witnesses were found and their statements taken. During this investigation, retired Tijuana police officer Carlos Mendez provided important testimony. He said he had written Hayes's death report in 1997, but noticed some inconsistencies in the report at that time. According to Mendez, Hayes's body was in very burned condition and positive identification couldn't be made. DNA testing wasn't common at that time. Since the body was burned, fingerprints couldn't be taken either. We wrote the report based only on fake identification documents found in his pocket. But I always had doubts. Did that man really die, or was this also a fake death? Mendez said. The FBI began investigating the scenario that Hayes might have lived after 1997 based on this possibility. If Hayes didn't die, he might have continued committing crimes in the 2000s. Unsolved missing person cases from this period were reviewed again. 47 unsolved missing person cases in America between 2000 and 2010 matched Hayes's modus operandi. Most of these showed Hayes had aged and changed his methods. He was now targeting children less, preferring young adults. The mysterious disappearances of college students were particularly notable. Jennifer Walsh, who disappeared from Oregon State University in 2003, Michael Chen, who vanished from UC Berkeley in 2005, Sarah Rodriguez, who disappeared from University of Washington in 2007. They all had common characteristics. They lived alone, had limited social circles, and before disappearing had said they were volunteering for a research project. When the FBI discovered this connection, it was understood that during his elderly period, Hayes targeted universities. Using fake academic identities, he approached students, deceived them with psychology research pretenses, then kidnapped them. When University of California system security records were examined, a suspicious person entering campus under names like Dr. Vincent Harper, Professor Walter Harrison, Dr. Victor Henderson, between 2000 to 2008 was detected. When security camera footage was analyzed, it was thought this person could be an aged Hayes. This discovery suggested Hayes hadn't really died in 1997, but had staged a fake death scenario and changed his identity. However, traces completely disappeared after 2008. Did Hayes really die, or did he change identity again? This question still awaits answers. During the FBI's 2024 investigation, Hayes's final traces were found in Nevada. A house purchased near Las Vegas in 2007 was registered under Victor Haywood. The house had been empty for a long time, but when FBI teams went there, they again encountered horrific evidence. In the house's basement were 4 small rooms, medical equipment remains, and Hayes's final period writings. From these writings, it was understood that Hayes was now physically weakened, but his mental obsession continued. "I'm aging, but my work isn't yet complete. I must explore the limits of young minds," he had written. The last note dated in the Las Vegas house was January 2008. After this date, there were no traces of Hayes. The FBI is evaluating all possibilities: natural death, another fake identity, escape to another country, or actual death. The Hayes file is still on the FBI's active investigation list. If he's alive, he would be 68 years old as of 2024. Considering this age, his active crime capacity is low, but theoretically, he could still pose a danger. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit updated Hayes' profile and shared it with local police departments. If similar cases are encountered, immediate reporting is requested. Every year Hayes lived meant more innocents suffered. The emergence of the Millfield case not only illuminated past crimes, but also led to important steps in preventing future similar crimes. The FBI developed new protocols for child missing cases. The Amber Alert system was updated. Interstate coordination improved. School security systems were also reviewed. New standards were introduced, especially regarding school bus security. Technologies like GPS tracking systems, emergency buttons, and camera recording systems became mandatory. Family education programs were initiated. Seminars were organized to raise awareness among parents about children's safety. They were taught how to recognize suspicious situations and how to act in emergencies. Social awareness campaigns were conducted. Citizens were encouraged to report suspicious situations with the "See Something, Say Something" slogan. Attention to strangers' behavior. In environments where children were present was emphasized. Millfield not only rebuilt itself after the case, but became an exemplary community in child safety. A child safety volunteer system was established in town. Trained volunteers work in every neighborhood, ensuring children's safety during school dismissals. The Sarah Chen Memorial Foundation was established. This foundation supports missing child cases, provides psychological counseling to families, and finances search operations. The foundation's slogan, "Don't stop until every child is safe." FBI. Agent Sarah Chen specialized in this field to keep her cousin's name alive. She became one of the country's most experienced agents in child missing cases. She developed a new investigation method called the Sarah Chen Protocol. This protocol includes these steps: extensive search within the first 3 hours, deployment of all technological capabilities, coordinated work with media, family support provision, and long-term follow-up. Thanks to this protocol, the resolution rate for missing child cases increased from 78% to 94%. The Vernon Hayes case went down in history as one of the most extensive serial murder investigations in FBI history. This case, resulting in the deaths of at least 127 people over 50 years in 12 different states, changed police working methods. The methods Hayes used are now taught as case studies in FBI serial killer profiling courses. Future FBI agents learn how to catch systematic criminals like Hayes through this case. After solving the Millfield case, similar cold files were also reopened. Child missing cases from the 1980s to 90s that couldn't be solved are being investigated with modern technologies. Thanks to DNA analysis, digital forensics, and advanced profiling techniques, cases that couldn't be solved at that time are being illuminated. As a result of these efforts, 23 different cold files were solved. 89 families had the chance to learn what happened to their children after 40 years. Each solved case heals a family's wound, but also raises new questions. Hayes's exact victim count will never be known. FBI experts estimate he killed at least 200, probably over 300 people. But reaching an exact number is impossible because Hayes had destroyed most of his records. At the end of 2024, the Hayes case was officially placed in the FBI's solved but monitored category. Hayes is presumed dead, but since there's no definitive proof, the file isn't completely closed. If new evidence emerges, the investigation can become active again. The memorial ceremony held annually on October 14th in Millfield is now conducted not only for the missing 13 people, but for all of Hayes's victims. During the ceremony, over 300 names are read. Each name represents a life, a family, a story. The most important message of this story is that hope should never be lost. The Millfield bus found after 38 years showed that justice, though late, can prevail. We owe it to their memory to continue fighting for every missing person. Vernon Hayes is gone, but the trail he left will never be erased. This trail motivates society to be more vigilant, improve security systems, and better protect children. Perhaps Hayes's greatest punishment is that the evil he created resulted in making the world a safer place. That yellow bus in Millfield is gone now, but its story lives on, inspiring protection for future generations. Because no forgotten story is truly forgotten. Sooner or later, truth emerges and justice finds its place.